Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show today. We're going to talk about the whole community approach to disaster response. I'm Michael Raphael, a disaster program manager for the American Red Cross here in Ulster County. I'm also the co-chair of the Human Services Disaster Committee.
Hi, I'm Beth McClendon. I'm the director of Ulster Corps. We're a local volunteer network.
Hi, I'm John Cummings. I'm a disaster services volunteer with the American Red Cross.
And I'm here to talk to you about, we're all here to talk to you about, a community-wide approach to disaster response and recovery. Most of you probably remember the big two incidents we had in the last 3 years. Irene, which impacted mostly the upstate, downstate, but did not impact the city so much. And of course, you remember the superstorm Sandy, which impacted us just over a year ago. And that was a pretty serious storm, and I think most of us remember how much our life were impacted. Now, the American Red Cross is very interested in supporting any kind of disaster response and relief operations. The only issue is that when we're faced with these large storms, it is very difficult for us to get everywhere at the same time. And of course, it really makes it difficult for us in terms of resources. Where are we going to put our resources when there is an impact of a large storm? What we're trying to do, and this is something that FEMA and the Red Cross came together and started discussing the issues that came up for us. And we're not talking only about Irene, Lee, and Sandy, but also talking about September 11, we're talking about Katrina. Over the years, we realized that when a community or adjacent communities gets impacted with a large storm, we are finding it very difficult, not only for FEMA and the Red Cross, but also for the state, to be able to reach everybody that we would like to reach. So what we have been looking at is ways that we could solve this problem. And of course, we look at communities and we think, well, most communities are able to deal with a lot of these disasters on their own for at least a temporary 72 hours after impact. What we've taken upon ourselves is to go into communities and work with communities to make them more prepared to respond when there is a disaster. Again, the American Red Cross wants to reach you and will try to reach you as much as we can. But the best people who can respond immediately and can do it effectively would be the local community. So American Red Cross together with FEMA thought about a way that we're going to be able to meet the mark. And that is by cooperating with local town supervisors, with community organizations, with county agencies, so we can start thinking about proactively what we're going to do the day before, a few days before the impact, and how we're going to recover as a community. As we before introduced Beth from Ulster Corps, that's a great example of a collaboration that the American Red Cross can come together with and really reach into the community with organizations like Ulster Corps who actually know the community very well and already have a constituency that they can reach out to. So the American Red Cross together with many organizations here in Ulster County has gotten together and started addressing some of the gaps that communities are facing, like generators, like lack of knowledge of where the shelters are, like not enough human resources. A lot of issues that actually we can solve ourselves here locally. So like I said, we've gotten together. We have a really great group of individuals from organizations from all around the county who are coming together and thinking about how to solve these problems. Now, that was the first step in getting ready to respond as a community. The most important step is for you, the citizen, the individual, the one who cares about their community, to step up to the plate and come and get trained with us. The American Red Cross is extended itself to offer training to any community in Ulster County that feels that they would like to engage and support all the other organizations, not only the American Red Cross, in responding and being able to meet your community's needs. We want to work with your community so you can help us to identify what is needed in your community and what kind of services can we count on and partnering with people from your community. So, for example, in Kingston, we work together very nicely with the Salvation Army. We're working with the Cross Point Church. We're working with the Methodist Church. We're working with synagogues. We're working with all faith-based organizations who can help us to give us the community so we can educate people and help them to understand what they can do the day before, the day after, and during the recovery process in the community. Recovery process, as you know, does not end a few weeks after a disaster, but lasts many years. You'll be surprised to find out that some people from Irene are still recovering and still haven't recovered completely. The more the community is embedded in the Red Cross, the more the community knows what to do and how to handle the disaster and the recovery, the better the community is, the better results are going to be in terms of the response, and the quicker the community is going to recover. Actually, a lot of psychologists are saying that, for example, the prevalence of PTSD goes down tremendously when the community is aware and ready to go. Beth, maybe you would like to talk a little bit about how Ulster Corps is working and how that is how we're working together as a collaborative effort.
Sure. So I think one of the things we talk a lot about is the disaster cycle. So there's the preparedness piece of getting individuals and communities and organizations prepared ahead of time, and response, how we can really be trained and ready to help when there is a disaster, and as you said, during recovery, long-term recovery. So Ulster Corps is a local volunteer network. Obviously, we connect people interested in volunteering with opportunities with all of the local nonprofits every day, both for short-term volunteer opportunities with community events like the Blueberry Festival, and also longer-term opportunities. And clearly, disaster response is an incredibly important volunteer responsibility and need in the community. So we try to make it easy for people to volunteer and effective for people to volunteer by connecting with organizations like the Red Cross, providing training ahead of time so our volunteers can be as effective as possible, and the experience is as positive as possible for the organization, for the individuals the volunteers are trying to help, and for the volunteers themselves.
I'm a resident of Ellenville and a disaster services volunteer. I have been for several years now. And I have worked on sheltering during Irene and also the ice storm of a couple of years ago. And it is really very important that we have more members of the community at least consider to become involved as shelter workers. It takes a lot of, it's not an extremely difficult thing to do, but it makes a big difference to the people who have to become shelter residents. It's very comforting to have your local people there to deal with the evacuees when they arrive at the shelter. We have, I think, 2 shelters being planned for the village of Ellenville, and we have a couple also out in the town that either are in place or soon will be in place. So that's what we're really focusing on now, is to get more people involved to provide support and comfort to the evacuees during the first typically 72 hours until more people can be mobilized and come in for the longer term problem.
So the leadership in Ellenville is a great example of being proactive in terms of approaching disaster and really starting connecting with the community. And that's why we're here to kind of support that movement. So I want to go back and remind people that we're here because we realize that, again, the American Red Cross is always able to deal with a localized disaster, and we have the resource to do that. But when we have these large disasters, 24 states impacted, 12 states impacted, it's a real challenge. Mm-hmm. So we want all your communities to be ready. And John just expressed how in Ellenville there is a group that's starting to get together. There are groups like that all over Ulster County, in Saugerties, in Kingston, in Woodstock. It's really great and makes us really feel that we have that support out in the community. So one of the things that we've done in this Human Services Disaster Committee, which includes emergency management on the county level, executive representation, United Way, who is co-chairing together with the American Red Cross. We have Salvation Army and churches and a lot of groups around us. We have DSS, we have Office of the Aging, we have public health preparedness. We have a lot of great groups around the table who are all really trying to think, how are we going to get to solve some of the gaps? Some of the areas that we have identified so far, and that doesn't mean the list is over, is, for example, pet sheltering. How do we go out and shelter pets? Because we know already from Katrina, from Irene, from Sandy, that people will go back home and risk their life in order to get their pet back. So it's not only important to have a shelter in Ellenville, we also need a pet shelter, and we need people, local people, who would be able to help us with that. Access to emergency services. There's a lot of people out there that are homebound, that have functional needs, that need that support from the community. When there's a big disaster, the state, FEMA, Red Cross are all inundated, all very busy doing a lot of stuff. We need that community support to identify those people who are vulnerable in the community. Only people in the community are going to know who they are. Another thing we have is feeding. Who's going to feed us? I mean, we all go to the supermarket, buy our food, think it's all ready. We take that for granted. When there's a disaster, it's a new day. I don't know if people remember, but people who are living on the corridor of Highway 28 that goes between Kingston all the way through our county into Delaware, they'll remember both supermarkets in that area were completely blown out. So they had nowhere to access food. We have a lot of food pantries in our communities. We have a food bank in our community. All we need to do is think about how we need to prepare these resources to be able to reach all the people out there. Communications, very important, right? What happens when there's a disaster? One of the first things happens is our power goes out. Sometimes our cell phone goes out. How are we going to communicate to each other? That's another important aspect of getting your community ready. Thinking about all these gaps before the disaster strikes is going to make us more prepared. So again, what we can do for you as our Ulster County Disaster Committee is come out to your community. We're asking you to get in contact with us. My contact numbers will be right after this show. Beth's contact numbers will be out there for Ulster Corps. John, who's a local community organizer, is well known by his community. You guys can get in contact with us, and we will come down there to have the first discussion and then start training. Like I said, there are trainings going on out throughout the county already. We've already trained a lot of communities, but we need more involvement. We need more communities to jump on the wagon.
Maybe you're a member of a church or a synagogue or a community group that would like to get involved in this effort, that could help with doing community meals during a disaster, or be part of a volunteer team during a disaster. We could organize a preparedness training with your organization. Again, sheltering, disaster overview, bulk distribution. There's so many different ways that you can help. Even youth can be involved and can be incredibly helpful in a disaster.
Again, being proactive is going to make our community safe, and the responsibility of that has to be on our own shoulders. Unfortunately, when there's a disaster, everybody is going to be very, very busy. The more our community is prepared, the more we know what to expect, the more we know what our needs are, the better we're going to be able to deal with it. So I really hope that we were convincing for you today. We're hoping to see you at one of our trainings coming up. There's enough time to think about it, so get ready now. Make sure that you meet the next disaster with your eyes open.